Alright guys, so if you are currently watching this video, you have successfully completed the first segment of our assignment for today, so congratulations. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be filling out your guided notes for today, and in fact for this entire unit. You should have received from the front lab bench a packet that is 13 printed pages long, just one-sided. You're going to be watching a segment of a video. It should take about 5 to 6 minutes. And then at the end of that 5 to 6 minutes of me going through, talking through our PowerPoint, you'll actually be able to go through the slides and fill in anything in those guided notes that you may have missed. Again, just like with any one of our videos, you can either fill in those notes as I go through or wait until you get to the slides. Watch this video as many times as you need. Make sure that you really and truly get all of this information down. There is going to be a short quiz on this when I return on Friday. The reason that I give you these quizzes when I've been out the day before is because I want to hold you accountable. I need you to really take control of knowing this information, take responsibility for it. It's not going to be a particularly difficult quiz if you go through this and actually complete the notes and make sure that you read through them once more before Friday. You will be perfectly fine. If you look at the bottom of your page, on the bottom right-hand side of that packet, you will see a printed number 1 through 13. Those are not the page numbers we're going to be looking at. Now, on both the bottom right and left-hand side, you'll see handwritten numbers, 1 through 26, I believe. Those are the page numbers you're responsible for. The quiz on Friday is going to cover handwritten pages 1 through 13. This is mostly vocabulary. You should be able to get it, no problem. You're not going to have any practice problems. We're going to be doing loads of those together. So don't worry about doing that, but make sure you really understand this vocabulary. Knowing and understanding the vocabulary is key to really understanding all of the rest of the unit that you're going to be responsible for. So let's go ahead and get started. Genetics as a field we talked about is really answering one or two very specific and very important questions. The first is, given two parents, what is an offspring going to look like? And the second question is, based on those two parents, what is the likelihood that that offspring is going to look that way? So as we can see from our pictures here, we do have a DNA basis, so we are going to be talking about some stuff that we learned in Unit 2, as well as physical characteristics such as height. The cat here is going to be a really interesting example that we're going to come back to towards the end of this. And then you have your abilities. So the ability to roll your tongue is based in genetics. It is not a skill that you can learn in life. It is literally coded into your DNA. I can roll my tongue. I cannot, however, do this 3-clover looking thing. So, at its heart, genetics is the science that studies how genes are transmitted from one generation to the next. So from parents to offspring. And we can see here an example of things really moving from one generation to the next. This is Indian corn or native corn. You can see it comes in a couple of different colors. So it comes in a yellow color, a purplish color, and then a reddish color. And we can actually look and see kernel by kernel what is being passed on here. In addition, the hitchhiker's thumb, as depicted here, is a trait that is actually genetically based. So I encourage you to take just a moment, fully extend your thumb, and see if it actually hyperextends this way. If it just sticks straight up and down, you do not have a hitchhiker's thumb. If it goes all the way back, that is called a hitchhiker's thumb, and it is genetically based. Now, a couple of key words here. These are going to be your definitions. A chromosome is contained in the nucleus of the cell. Now, it's only contained in the nucleus of the cell if that cell has a nucleus. Remember, we have two different types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Only those eukaryotes are going to have the nucleus. Only those eukaryotes are going to carry their chromosomes within their nucleus. Chromosomes are made of course, DNA. And that DNA contains something called genes. This is something we haven't talked about directly yet, but we have indirectly talked about it. A gene is a segment of DNA that controls a hereditary trait. When we talked about this as the coding portion of the DNA. And I do apologize if it's a little bit loud in the background. I am recording this in the hotel lobby, so there's going to be some ambient noise here going on. So a gene, we talked about as a coding segment of DNA. So from that start codon, from that AUG, to one of your 3 stop codons. So anything that's going to code for a specific protein. And chromosomes are long chains of genes. So just like that DNA strand that I gave you in our Unit 2 project, it didn't have just one protein on it. It was a whole bunch of them chained together. Now, a trait is a characteristic of an organism, such as hair color, eye color, tall, short, skin color. Can you roll your tongue? Are you albino? Do you have the hitchhiker's thumb? All of those things are traits. These are going to be things that you can point at and say, this is what I am describing. Traits are going to be your adjectives. Now, 2 what we call alleles must be present in order for a trait to show up in the offspring. When we talked about these yesterday in our little bubbles, we talked about them as homologous chromosomes. You have to have 2 of them in order for the trait to show up in the offspring. One of those is going to come from your mom, and the other one's going to come from dad. That's why I took all that time really color coding those when we went through meiosis. One of them was always in red, one of them was always in blue. When fertilization occurs, the new offsprings have 2 alleles for every trait. When we filled in those bubbles, you had tall, tall. You had tall, short. You had short, tall. You had short, short. But you had 2 of them for the same trait. The trait that we were looking at was height, and your 2 options were tall and short. But there was always 2 of them in that same fertilized egg, which remember is called a zygote. So that's where I'm going to stop this video. You're going to be able to go through and look at those last couple of slides, fill in your guided notes for the stuff that you're missing, make sure it all gets in there, and I will see you in just a couple slides.